Hello, Internet. It's me, Matthew, and I'm here to talk about Daredevil and Fantastic Four. First up is Daredevil and Echo. Echo. Um, so this was a four-part mini. Just to talk, I mean, to even begin to talk about it, I mean, Ghost Rider shows up, the Demon Goblin shows up, and there's a lot of Catholic ideas mixed in with Native American ideas and just kind of spiritual ideas all together. And it is a focus on that, which, if released at any other point in Marvel history, basically, would have sung much better as a little mini and aside doing something different. What a miss to release it right now when the Daredevil run is at the height of leaning on religious ideals. Um, Not only that, this mini also feels like it's undercut because it's now kind of not just a mini, but kind of the Daredevil B book idea, which has been kind of creeping in more recently over the past few years, which is annoying because Daredevil definitely does better and is stronger as a book a month done well. Marvel doesn't let many things rest on those kinds of laurels anymore. And as that stuff creeps in, you can always feel it hurt the books overall. So that's frustrating. And there's a new B book with Daredevil Black with a reach back to a different era, which these things can hurt over time. As for now, like a reach back to a different era doing those books with different older creators has actually been a trend that Marvel's been doing that generally I think has worked out pretty well. I think some of the X-Men ones are definitely better than others. Like reaching back to dealing with Cameron Hodge again just wasn't needed. That was one of the weakest parts of X Factor. Why relive it again? But like we'll get there. But like the Storm mini or whatnot that X Men has done has actually been pretty strong overall. So whereas I am trepidatious about Marvel doing that with Daredevil, especially if it stops with Daredevil Black for now, maybe we're out, and we get back to that book a month, I think we'll be good. It's gonna take like half a year before we find out, anyways, right? So then Daredevil 14 of the third leg of Zdarsky's run. Um, I personally feel that this run is Daredevil at its absolute worst. It is relying on hyper mysticism, religion not in Matt as a practicing Catholic, affecting his character and how he views things and morality as a lawyer, as a superhero, as a man. It's not that. It's his a sense of justice now peeked through the rich and his version of what he thinks God wants, and as he's sent to hell and all of this and not earning an income and Lord knows what else. It's all very um unearned, and it becomes so heightened that we lose the magic of what may has made Daredevil a interesting character classically, and what has kept him more grounded, within a superhero sense, that away from, and I mean, Daredevil is obviously a flight of fancy, arguably a power fantasy, though I push back on that definition with a character like Daredevil, especially. But the idea of the futility of all of it, but like also the scope of it. The protector of Hell's Kitchen is there. It's like a 3 block area of New York, and that's what he's like. Nothing, or a small portion really of land, like, and the politics there within doing all that. That's interesting because it makes those areas feel alive. You can really do that, and it is somewhat vaguely annoying that yes, it is another character in New York. That's the only place we get that, whatnot. But I mean, in this case, I think that works. It's part of the city. It's really interesting to keep things that tight. And when we start to have characters going to hell, talking about global finances, doing all this, and not doing it particularly well. There's a bunch of other comics that have had heroes deal with that and corporate espionage and all that, um, in much more interesting ways, and not having an island in the middle of nowhere with mystic powers and supposed argue. Like, and that's the thing, is like, what was the enemy supposed to be? There was the rich people, and then there was the Hand, and then there was the Avengers. Like, no, keep it smaller, keep it tighter, keep the story together. Everything about Zdarsky's run failed on its face to begin with, but then also by the time you get to the ending, was for naught. It doesn't really have much to say or mean or give hope or show anything. There's nothing there at the end of it. I'm really curious to see how the perception of what's been a critically acclaimed run and a fan favorite overall. I am usually in areas talking about Daredevil, the sole voice of dissent. But just by basic markers of how I look at fiction, but also how generally one evaluates fiction, this run does not measure up. Um, so it's really hard that this was so beloved, but it is done. Um, we have a new creator coming in, and I'm curious to see how that all goes. We'll talk about it when we get there. I don't know Thing 1, and I'm going to give some grace for the first couple of issues, especially because this run leaves us with a supposedly dead Matthew, although he's kind of around, which is annoying because we've done that before, and we don't need characters to die every few years and be reborn. It's trite, it's worthless, it takes away, it's not additive. It's not a good mode, and I think they think it is. Like, it is a rebirth, a fresh take, and it does not read that way. It just detracts from the character. Um, so it makes it all meaningless. So, anyways, switching gears, Fantastic Four, very different side of Marvel. Um, there's an annual with this contest of chaos, like there was for Spider-Man. This one is the Human Torch with his mustache, though his mustache is not on the cover, and the Ghost Rider. I don't know if you say the, or I guess it wouldn't be the because there's two, right? This is Johnny Blaze, Ghost Rider, and they fight. They have fire. There's some demons. They get sucked to hell. But here, I don't care because it's just for the story. And Ghost Rider's there, and they're out by the end. So it's just kind of, it's a realm for the Human Torch anyway. So it doesn't really matter. I don't know. They fight. It's a dumb Marvel punch 'em up. It was fun, but very skippable. Not too much to say. What I do have more to say about, and what I think is important in the greater scheme of Marvel right now, is this Fantastic Four issue 10. So I believe this has come across, but let me be blunt. Uh, Fantastic Four has continually been the best book Marvel has been publishing basically since it started. Um, this is great. This is the best Fantastic Four has been in a long time. And I say that I enjoyed the Slot run. I enjoyed the Robinson run. I've enjoyed other runs. And really, Slot was the only one that was the only one before this after the break. And then there was a few before that, and overall, I really enjoy Fantastic Four comics as a rule. Um, and whether or not this is the absolute, I don't think that matters right now. I think what matters is if you're picking up comics regularly and you're not getting this, you totally should. And if you're kind of worried about hopping in, most issues are pretty on their own. This issue 10 you could pick up and read on its own, and you should. This issue is incredible. It's a story with aliens perceiving the Fantastic Four. Ultimately, empathy wins the day. I don't want to sully it for those who haven't, and I don't think it would be additive for those who have. But this is a tight story that is one of the best science fiction stories I can conceive of. Now, my science fiction palette is not as broad as many of others. It's mostly Star Trek, but I mean Doctor Who, Star Wars, a few books here and there, yada yada. Um, but um, this issue is one of those standout comic issues that I will remember for years. In my mind, I was comparing it to this issue of Spawn, Curse of Spawn, I read years ago. I don't remember the number. Um, but basically, the issue is there's an angel and a demon on this one guy's shoulder who's considering jumping off a bridge. And they have this whole thing out, they do it, and the angel argues, like, you should live, push on, it's hard, but it's life. And the devil's saying, like, no, do this, your family will, receive this, you'll be out of their way, da da da. Ultimately, the guy decides to walk away with a new determination for what's next. And Spawn steps in at this moment. And so it's a Spawn comic, but Spawn isn't like the main character, but it's in the Mayu, right? And Spawn basically is a referee's like, hey, you two aren't allowed to directly communicate with a human. That's against the rules. So Spawn just wipes the guy's memory of the last whatever it was and leaves it to the guy who was ready to jump, and he does. The end. um, that's a comic that has stuck with me. I read it originally in middle school. Um, it's just one of those tight issues that's just quality storytelling. This is an ethos, the polar opposite of that. But in the tightness and the roundness and just like a story that you will remember, and it's an issue, um, is something that creators used to try to achieve much more often, and now this sort of thing isn't even being tried to achieve. Not only, I mean, has Norton Fernandez, and I'm not going to try to pronounce the rest of the names because this I mean this is a masterclass in storytelling. So often when I'm reading comics, I think like I would have done this, or oh, if I was telling a story, I probably would have done this, and I think what they did is better, that sort of thing. This is the sort of thing that makes me say, oh, these are pros. And I don't think on my best day I could reach anything like this if I was trying to write it. This is incredible. It's so weird. If you don't know, Ryan North initially made his bones doing dinosaur comics, which, if you've read, it's the same panels pretty much every day or every week. I forget how, right, but it was a regular upload webcomic. And it was just dialogue back and forth between these two dinosaurs. But it's like it was this MS Paint drawing, and he just would update the dialogue and do that. And I don't know. I read them here and there sporadically. They were sometimes funny. Some I don't know. They weren't anything that I thought that much of, or thought like, here's a creator that's going to be worth following forever. And I did think that about some of the webcomic people at the time, and I kind of thought that was more the future of comics. Um, and yet here we are. The creator of Mega Tokyo is just still doing Mega Tokyo. I got, even if the guy was just doing his own web comics, if he just restarted and tried something fresh at this point, I think would do more world of good. Uh, we have Penny Arcade, which is its own weird little universe at this point, where they don't need to change or improve their craft, and that's fine. But I mean, it is where it is. The Doctor McNinja stuff kind of went where it went, and Ryan North now is, as far as I'm concerned, definitively one of the best creators in, you know, big two or any like comic book field, and just not where I was expecting all that to go. And here we are, and That's how it is. Just kind of interesting. So I don't know. Those are my thoughts. I'd be curious if you guys read this, if you had any thoughts about Daredevil or Fantastic Four, let me know. And keep reading, and I'm going to hit you guys soon with another one.